Saxon Algebra 1/2, lesson 82. Students, yesterday, well, whenever, last time, there we go. It was yesterday for me. We learned about how to multiply and divide signed numbers, meaning plus or minus signs in front of them. Whole different thing than climbing up and down the ladder in the meadow. That's for adding and subtracting. Multiplying and dividing, as you'll recall, are all about pickup sticks, right? Because every two minus signs make a positive sign. So what we're going to do is put that into practice with some fabulous problems. Simplify. Look at that nasty string of numbers. And what's confusing about this is that it's really hard to tell the subtraction from the negative numbers that are being multiplied. So I'll give you another minute to copy it. I'll check it. And then we'll talk about how to figure that out. Okay, so we know that order of operations is a thing. We know that that goes, let's see, parentheses or other shapy things, exponents and roots, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction, right? That's our order of operations. And we can see, okay, we've got some parentheses here. There are no exponents or roots. There's multiplication, there's no division. We can't tell yet if there's any subtraction because it's too confusing. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is pay attention to these parentheses. Now, here's what's confusing about the parentheses. Sometimes there's work to do inside of them, but sometimes parentheses are used to symbolize multiplication. Oh my gosh, who made these rules? They're so confusing. So we have to look at our parentheses and ask ourselves, is there work to do inside of these, or do they just mean multiplication? So we look at the first one. No, there's no work to do there. What these parentheses mean, multiply 2 times minus 4. Oh, well, that's different, isn't it? Now this 3 is just chilling by himself. So that means to subtract or add as a negative number, right? Because that's the same thing. Yikes. Okay, now these parentheses, once again, mean multiplication. I'm going to put an X underneath them. That means multiply. Okay, actually, I'm going to write multiply because otherwise it looks like it's the variable of X, and I don't want to confuse you. Right? So that's the first thing we do is we take a look at the whole thing. That's why it is really helpful if you write it down in your book, in your homework page. I know you can look at the book and do it, but it's a lot harder to keep your head straight while you're just looking, the numbers are all smooshed together in the homework pages and you can't write on them very easily. So I really do recommend, especially in the beginning, that you write them down. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by multiplying these two chunks and see what we've got. Now, the rules for multiplying are 1, I always think of it as do the numbers. Just multiply or divide or whatever it is you need to do. And then 2, figure out the sign. Okay, so let's do the first one. 2 times 4 is 8. There's 1 minus sign, so we can't make a plus out of that. It just chills there. Okay, now this minus 3 is exactly the same. Oh, and then the other thing I didn't say is this minus sign means subtraction 2, but we have to multiply this last chunk. 6 times 3 is 18, and these 2 pickup sticks, oh look, I happen to have my fake pickup sticks handy. There's 2 of them, right? On the 6 and the 3, so they go together, they make a plus sign. Click, they're magnet, not really, but pretend. So this turns into a plus 18. Now, I put that in parentheses just so that it's really easy to see that this gave us that, right? This is the product, if you will. This minus sign is just coming straight down. All 3 of these just come straight down. The hardest thing in these is just trying to tell which ones are the subtraction and which ones are part of the multiplication. And we know this must be subtraction because it's not part of a multiplication. So now we have minus 8, minus 3, minus 18. We can make the parentheses and the plus sign go away. That doesn't change anything. And that turns into what? Minus 29. And that's the right answer. All right. Now, that was our warm-up problem. Now we're going to do one that's, ever so slightly harder. It's the kind that says evaluate. And then John gives us the letters, right? He gives us an expression like that. And then he tells us to evaluate this if x equals minus 2 and y equals minus 4. Now, we've done these before, these evaluation problems where we plug in the letters. And I've told you before to use buckets for each letter. That becomes more important than ever, you guys, because we now have subtraction sign. We have minus signs in here, and then we have minus signs here. We'll go crazy unless we're very careful with the buckets. So use your buckets. Don't fool around with these. You could hurt yourself. Copy this with a bucket for every letter, right? Now I take my x value of minus 2, and I put it in there. And I put it in there, right? I'm following this pattern. And then here I need a y, and that's a minus 4. Okay. Now we do the same thing that we did last time. We look for multiplications. Here's parentheses, but that doesn't really change. We're not, well, you can kind of think of it like this, you guys. We're multiplying it by minus 1. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this. This becomes positive 2, right? Then this comes down as a minus sign. Then we'll multiply these. It's 8, and those two make a plus. Okay, so now let's simplify this. We can write it as plus 2 minus 8, and our final answer is minus 6. They're sneaky, you guys. These problems are, I'm sure you're looking at this going, oh yeah, this is easy. I can do this. But they're tricky. So be patient with yourself and go slow. Okay, the next one is minus a minus xa. And I'm staring at it because it looks just like that, doesn't it? Different letters, but let me just look at it again. Yeah, minus a minus xa. See how it says evaluate that if blah and blah, right? You've done these before. They're kind of fun, but this, it's a little bit hard. X equals minus 3 and a equals 2. I double checked that one because they're not in alphabetical order, and that seems a little weird to me. But that's how John wrote them. Okay, minus 3 and 2. All right, once again, we make our buckets, copying everything else super carefully. A is 2, so I'll put those in. X is minus 3. Okay. This minus sign changes the outside of it. I prefer to think of that as a multiplying minus 1 times 2. So that becomes minus 2. This minus sign goes right down there. That's a subtraction. That's not part of the multiplication. That's how I'm choosing to think of it. Later, we'll end up seeing that you can smush it all together, but I don't want to confuse you right now. This minus sign will just bring down. Then we'll multiply these. 6 minus, right? So that becomes a plus. So this is minus 2 plus 6 equals 4. And that's the final answer. Okay, later we'll pick up speed and we'll smush more of this together. But for right now, I'm going fairly slow and deliberate bit by bit, okay? We'll get faster as we go, but right now we're trying to get it right. We're not trying to rush. That, my friends, is lesson 82. We're getting there. We are algebra-ing hard. Feel smart. Goodbye.